Good morning and welcome to AM Prime. Now, if you followed AM Prime and WSN for the past 2 years or so, then you might be familiar that I was the original host of AM Prime, and I did that for about 5 months. A lot has changed since then, and I'm here back holding on for the next 2 weeks on this program. And as I was saying, a lot has changed since then. We've since emerged out of a global pandemic. Trinidad and Tobago, right now, we are preparing for a local government elections. And we still have some of these issues raging throughout our society when it comes to crime, when it comes to citizens' inability to participate in a free and fair way throughout our democracy on a regular daily basis. We have problems with our education system, with our health system, and so forth. But one thing is true, and that's that we have life. It gives us another opportunity to do something about the many issues that we face in this country. And there are many voices throughout society who have been speaking out, who have been adding their voices, their 2 cents, and really putting boots on the ground, trying to make this country a better place. There are some of the opinion who believe that they are actually making inroads in terms of getting Trinidad and Tobago on the right track, whereas there are others who simply feel as though it's a lost cause. We are seeing citizens migrating or emigrating out of Trinidad and Tobago, and it's a really sad situation because the fact is, we have so much to offer in this country. We have a brilliant display of culture that is world-renowned and so many things to be grateful for. But the fact is, we can't become complacent. It reminds me more or less of a conversation that was taking place recently that we'll get into in a bit at the BBC World Questions. It took place recently, and I remember the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs was saying that we had to be grateful for the carbon, for the fossil fuels that we have the benefit of having in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, that was met with a particular apprehension because many people feel as though while, yes, we should be grateful for having fossil fuels, oil and gas being a leader in that field for many years, but the fact is that we have to start transitioning. And that's a conversation that is going throughout our society. Do we stick to the status quo, or do we start really taking our eggs from that one basket and spreading it across? Well, we're going to be discussing a bit of the BBC World Questions forum that took place recently. We are also going to be speaking today, this morning's program, about cancer care for pediatrics, for young children in this country, and what has been done to really provide more opportunities for persons when they are going through that difficult period with their children, their family. And then finally, we are also going to be discussing migrants in this country and the alleged abuses that they are facing. So we have a packed program for you this morning. Remember, this is AM Prime, and we want you to stay with us. We'll be right back.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola.
Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WASN,
the content capital.
Welcome back to AM Prime. I'm Nikolai Edwards. And before the break, in my intro, I was discussing the BBC World Questions. Now, you might be wondering, well, what exactly is that? Well, unless you're living under a rock, the BBC World Questions Forum took place recently in Trinidad and Tobago. We would have had on June 7th at the Central Bank Auditorium. The BBC World Questions came in partnership with the British Council to this country. Now, it's really a platform where persons are afforded the opportunity to see their leaders in society, whether it's civil society, in politics, and in other facets, be able to debate the questions, the issues that are burning in any particular country. And you have participants who are wide-ranging in terms of the average citizen. You have other business leaders and so forth, being able to participate from the audience in terms of asking questions, raising concerns, and so on. So just to give you a bit more, the BBC World Service reaches a weekly global audience of 364 million on radio, TV, and digital. BBC World Service English is an English language radio and online network that broadcasts internationally. It reaches a weekly audience of 92.6 million, broadcasting news and current affairs programs. We also would have had representing Trinidad and Tobago in terms of this leg, the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, Stuart Young. You had Dr. Marlene Atz, an economist, Lawrence R. June, who is the CEO of the Heroes Foundation. And we also have my first guest, who is Anita Haynes, Member of Parliament for Tabaquite and the Shadow Minister for Education. She also served previously as the Public Relations Officer for the United National Congress. Anita, good morning and welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning, Nikolai. How are you? And how are your viewers this morning? I hope all is well.
I'm fine, thanks. Now, I know that it's a rainy morning, so I'm really hoping that as much as the weather is what it is, this conversation and this program could bring some sunshine to some people's days. In terms of
as well.
In terms of the BBC World Questions, how was it that you got involved?
So the BBC actually reached out to me about 2.5 months ago, almost 3 months ago, saying that they would be coming to Trinidad and that they were looking for panelists. They asked if I would consider being one of the panelists. And so I considered the opportunity and to add my voice to a global discussion, or to Trinidad and Tobago discussion on a global stage. And so I agreed, like I said, about 2.5 months ago. And then we began to prepare.
Nice. Obviously, preparing over that period, 2.5 months, were you nervous? I mean, of course, you're a politician. You sit in our country's parliament. You debate the issues, and you have a lot to say on many things as it relates to Trinidad and Tobago. But now this is really an international platform where you're really under a lot more scrutiny. The BBC in itself takes a lot of these things very seriously. So was there any bit of apprehension, any bit of nervousness going into it?
So there's always some nervousness whenever you do something that's new. The concern wasn't so much the BBC or scrutiny, because I hold myself and the information that I provide to the public at the highest level. So I'm not really ever nervous about scrutiny. But this would have been one of the first experiences with a live interactive audience. And so, day-to-day life in Trinidad politics, you have parliament where you interact with your fellow parliamentarians, you have platform politics where you interact, where you are speaking to party supporters, etc. And then we have cottage meetings, etc. But those aren't televised, so that or recorded, I should say. And so, that consideration as to what would the mood of the audience be, and just, as a regular Trinidad and Tobago citizen, understanding what the mood of the population is. I think preparing yourself to answer the questions, and you have, Nikolai, you exist in this space as well, so you understand that not every answer you give is an answer that public may be ready to receive. Yes. That doesn't mean that you can change the answer. You just have to ensure that you are able to, explain yourself and being cognizant of any time constraints, etc. So to get your point across quickly, succinctly, and in a meaningful way. So those are the things that I consider. But news about scrutiny, I very rarely have those.
Yes. And actually, that's what you put across in terms of you're being accustomed to whether it is speaking to members of the media on a platform, speaking to supporters and so forth, but you had more or less a mixture of all of those things taking place at the same time and being recorded, as you mentioned. And I want to get into, a bit later on though, the whole idea of debates in this country, having more of these fora and so on. But to start with, there were many burning questions. I remember from the start, there were 8 questions, and just for viewers to understand, once you arrived there, you were given a card and allowed to write a question that you wanted to pose to the panel. So we had probably about 250 persons attending the BBC World Questions at Central Bank Auditorium. So they had a wide range of questions to choose from. But it whittled down to about 8 questions. And the first one was a burning issue in this country of crime. We had the person asking the question being a victim of crime insofar as, or his family being a victim of crime insofar as they witnessed a patriarch in the family dying, and he was complaining about or bringing attention to the issue of it's been so much time past and still members of the homicide division have not reached out to him and to his family. Do you, as Member of Parliament for Tabaquite and being a part of the opposition, do you constantly hear these kinds of issues and concerns being brought to your doorstep with the expectation from citizens that there is something that you can or should do to help fix these issues in the country?
So, Nikolai, I came from the Senate into the House of Representatives, and coming into that space, having been a student of politics, so that's what I pursued my academic career in, you realize that the role of a member of parliament in theory and the role of a member of parliament in practice are two fundamentally different things. Yes. So certainly coming into this space, I realized that yes, persons will come in with the expectation that something can be done. But most importantly, people come into my office, persons come into my office with the expectation that their member of parliament will hear their concerns. And so that perhaps they, after in spaces of the emotions, etc., you're like, look, what can we do? And so for my office day, we try to provide a solution-oriented space. So I'm very clear with what I am legislatively able to do, what I can do, just in the wider scheme of things. But then we try not to let you leave here feeling a sense of hopelessness. So we have, we look at all avenues, all things possible. But I will also try to clarify, once you're in this space, what can a member of parliament actually do, especially when it comes to spaces like the TTPS, when it comes to, explaining that we cannot instruct the police, and explaining why you ought not to want any member of parliament to even be able to do that in the first place. And so we go through, what problem is, and what avenues we can find a solution. And in the event that a solution, I mean, sad to say, is a long-term process as opposed to immediate resolution, we try to create a space where check-ins, follow-ups, assessing, and creating that open door policy between members of the public and myself as a member of parliament. Because, like I said, nobody tells you how much of the role of a counselor and listening ear this job really calls for, and that's what a lot of people are in fact looking for as well.
Well, and that brings me to an important point, I think, where politicians of past and present are somewhat guilty of putting into the public domain that they can be Superman and Superwoman, and that they can fix every single pothole, and they can do this, that, and the other, and give out a million houses to their constituents. But the reality is something different. Are you, or do you see us really moving away from that kind of politics where it's selling dreams to really and truly politicians or persons who are seeking your vote, are being realistic, are saying, vote based on policy as opposed to personality and so forth? And especially as a young person coming into politics or seeing it as you were growing up to where you are today, has anything changed?
I think that we, as persons coming into the political space, our duty is to foster a sustainable level of change. And so we get all these radical calls for changes, which is, from talks of constitutional reform or the requirement of a special majority to make this big change. But my philosophy is, when I come in, I can make a difference in my space, and then I can encourage persons to make that difference by seeing that there can be successes. And, I agree with you that for far too long we have been carrying on as if, what you hear on a platform, or you hear, or you even see in a manifesto, is just so unrealistic that discerning eye, you'd look at it and you'd be like, well, nobody can get this done. However, there is a space to be or an argument for being aspirational. What are we overall trying to achieve as Trinidad and Tobago society? And then we break that down into steps as to what we can achieve in a 5-year term, or what we can achieve in a 1-year session of Parliament. What can we achieve? And so that's what we do. So in my office, again, as a member of Parliament, we do an annual assessment of what we were able to accomplish, what we still need to accomplish. Being an opposition member has its own challenges, but you still have work to do. We do monthly check-ins. We go through the call list to see who needs calls returned, whose letter we sent out 2 months ago and probably is unaware of where it is in the system, so that again we can let you know that we are here, we are walking you through the process as best as we can. And I've also been very focused as a member of Parliament, using this time in opposition to really define what a representative means, right? I think we sit in the House of Representatives and you hear everybody tell us about our legislative function, which is important, it is critical, but very rarely people talk about our representative function, which I think is our most important, our most important space. And so what are we doing to enhance representation? What are we doing to enhance representation in a digital age? What are we doing to bring persons who are disenchanted into the system? One of the statements I hate to hear is when people say, well, we don't want to politicize the issue. Politics is the discussion of policy, right? So to use politicize in a negative way, it's like, taking up a space, a service to the population and making it something ugly in a hope of countering somebody that you perceive to be, your enemy or the person that you're fighting against. And it really does our nation a disservice. At the end of the day, a reasonable, cogent discussion of policy, an understanding of the representative function, and creating a space where Trinidadians and Tobagonians, once again, can be able to trust in the system, not to solve all of your problems, but to work in partnership, considering the social contract a way of moving forward as a nation. And I do believe we can get there. I would not have entered the political sphere if I did not believe we can get there. But it did not, this situation, this system wasn't created overnight. And therefore, to expect that it would change overnight, I think, is also its own version of selling dreams.
Gotcha. I need to squeeze in one last question, at least. Unfortunately, time is escaping us. But one of the things that you kept repeating, you kept etching in people's minds, the idea of holding your politicians accountable, raising your voice on certain issues, bringing it to the politicians and so forth. Now, from where I sit, I do think that many people are able to and have been raising issues in society. When we think about civil society and those boots on the ground, putting out reports, having conferences and putting information out into the public domain, but it seems to some degree that those things fall on deaf ears. However, when we speak about political parties in particular, because that was the gist of, I think, what you were putting forward, the average person does not see him or herself having the ability, unless they are a member of whatever political party it is, being able to go to either PNM or UNC and saying, well, okay, these are the issues, this is what I think that should be on the agenda and so forth, because it feels as though there isn't the space. You go to a UNC political rally, you're expected to be a UNC member in that political rally, because if you come and you have on a red jersey, people will watch you funny. So how do you really anticipate that you speak of in terms of being able to raise your voice, having the politicians listen and therefore act on it?
Okay. And so I'll take your question in parts, right? On the first instance, the voice of civil society and meetings and conferences and different things being held, right? Again, I've seen over time, from the outside and from the inside, this space of divorcing everything from politics so that you'll have these meetings and whatnot. And rather than saying, let us have, the minister and the shadow present and facing the population, facing the part of the consultation, part of the conversation, you're given a document at the end and then you're being told, look, but it's because we don't want to politicize it, right? But then you're dependent on legislators, policymakers, persons within that system to be there. And so what I found is a lot of the times for the conversation to engage persons in active politics, it has to be put on by persons in active politics, and that draws a different audience, right? So I think we need to get to the space that when we understand collaboration and whatnot, that we say, listen, throw away the notions of what happened in the past and how things have been going, and let us really engage. So you're saying, listen, these are the things we're looking at executing. Tell us what is possible. Tell us how this can be done. Tell us if you're willing to do it. And then you make your decision based on that. With respect to where you at influencing political organizations, influencing the internal direction of political organizations. And this is one of the things where I tell people, this may not be an answer you wish to hear, but in order to influence inside political spaces, you do have to make a decision to enter into those political spaces. There's some space where you can influence on the outside, but when you're looking at things like candidate selection, internal policy making, what is presented by that political organization, I had to make that decision but some time ago, where you look at the political organizations that we do have, understanding that we are in a first-past the post-political system, understanding that we have two major political parties, understanding the space of a third party and what it means, and saying, okay, can you join one and do your very best to make that one better, what you hope to see. Because the idea that you're joining a political organization and that you expect that organization to stay stagnant or to repeat the same thing year after year, I think that is insanity in itself. And so I've always encouraged persons, while I myself am a member of the United National Congress, I do always, and I mean, you can check all the records, encourage persons to become more politically active. And however you see that, now, if it is NGO advocacy, that is good as well. But we can't have everyone going in that direction. And then complain about seeing the same old politicians. But if you're not joining, where are you expecting new politicians to come from? Sure. You know? And so don't let ourselves become discouraged into a catch-22. I found that the system really the system overall is created for us to get fed up very quickly. And those who are resilient in doubling down in what has gone by, they stay active and they stay around, because those of us will come in and say, look, this really is not for me. You know? And so, yes, so to answer your question, yes, I mean, I understand there is some disenchantment, or a lot of disenchantment with all the political organizations that we face. Because you'll see people, rising to some popularity, and then you see it slowly fading away. And so you have to understand, we all have to understand that we may have to make some choices. We may have to get involved, and a lot of us will actually have to get our hands dirty in fixing a system that we really don't feel serves us anymore. And that is important. You have to remember too, in the 1960s, in that independence era, republic era, a lot of persons were extremely politically active and politically involved, and you held your views vociferously. And we need to get back to that, because the system that we're working on is that system from the 1970s.
So, Anita, I apologize, but time and how these things go. And I would actually love to have more of this conversation with you, because one of the things that I left off at the forum was calling for debates to take place. We got a commitment from yourself to at least pursue that, see if that is possible, as well as from the chairman of the PNM. And I just want to strongly encourage you both again to actually move forward with that, because the people want more opportunities, and we shouldn't have to wait for the BBC to come to Trinidad and to be able to create that space and that forum for discussion on issues that affect all of us in this beautiful country that we want to see successful. So let me thank you. We have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and continue to do the work that you do, representing young people and really being a voice for young people in politics as well. So thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me, and please everyone stay safe in this very terrible weather that we've been having. So have a good day.
Excellent. Guys, we have to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we have a lot more for you here on AM Prime. Stay with us.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
We discuss gestational diabetes, a form of diabetes which develops in pregnant women. This medical condition can affect both the fetus and mother, but can be managed to ensure that you have a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby.
From the first trimester, there's an increased risk of miscarriages, an increased risk of fetal abnormalities. So these are congenital. The baby could be born with an abnormality.
What's Up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WASN,
the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Welcome back to AM Prime. I'm Nikolai Edwards. Before we go to our next guest, we're going to take you to some regional news over in Guyana. A preliminary investigation into the fire that claimed the lives of two sisters at Mahaika, East Coast Demerara, on Wednesday revealed that the children who were left unattended were playing with matches, which caught on a mattress. The incident has left residents, and more so the mother of the children, distraught as they try to cope with their deaths. We have a video.
10-year-old Anamika Hardat and her 3-year-old sister Shamina Hardat were always together. And Anamika, who had a disability, was the eldest, but she was well taken care of by her younger sister. The sisters perished on Wednesday after a fire gutted their Belmont, Mahaika, East Coast Demerara house. The house, which is owned by Ayub Mohammed Khan, was separated into 3 apartments and was occupied by 79-year-old Zaman Khan and his family of 11. Anamika and Shamina lived in one of the apartments with their mother, Bibi Shabika Khan, her partner, and their 2 brothers. When the fire erupted around 13:07 hours, the girls were alone in the apartment, and despite efforts by neighbors and relatives, they could not have been saved since the apartment was not easily accessible. Fire Chief Acting Gregory Wickham told the newsroom on Wednesday that as the probe continues, a preliminary investigation revealed that the children were playing with matches which ignited with a mattress. In an interview with the newsroom on Wednesday, the children's mother, Shabika Khan, who is finding it hard to cope, recalled her last moment with her daughters. She had already sent her sons to school, but the girls stayed home because they were not well.
I look after them girl, I feed them, while them boy gone to school. I carry them on the road, I take out picture, passport picture, and I bring them home back.
The distraught mother said she left home for the Covachon police station to collect child support, after which she ventured to Georgetown to purchase school supplies for them. It was while she was on her way home that she was informed of the fire.
First phone call, let me come home that my house on fire. And I tell them, yeah, see what I could do because I wouldn't reach in time. to get the kids them from the house. Either in town, either in bus, I can't reach in time. When they call me, the fire was just, they said the fire just start like, because I didn't expect, like I don't know what happened. I didn't like believe what they're telling me.
Pointing out that raising her children has not been an easy task, Khan said despite the hardships, they kept her happy.
I try to be the best and do the best as a mother with 4 kids. It's not easy, and I still try. And I still grieve because I really still grieve for my kids, and because they is the one that's keeping me so happy. I always try to keep me and my kids them safe. Everything, all the documents, everything, all the jewelry, all the money that we had, I did not walk with all the money yesterday. I left on some of the money. I had money in the poison cup them for the kids them. Everything just disrupt.
Meanwhile, neighbors accuse Khan of constantly locking the children in the house and leaving them unattended.
Me drop and me run out. After me run out, me watch up at the house, the zinc, there is fire with the 2 kids in the house. The brother go, yes, the brother broke one door, the second door cannot broke. He jump on the zinc, when he jump on the zinc, he broke the window. When he broke the window, he hauled the child. He said the child loose. He cannot pull the child because it was grill. And there is fire.
Khan and her family, as well as the other relatives who were displaced, are now left contemplating their next move. Reporting for the newsroom, Sharda Bacchus.
Very distressing news facing the people of Guyana, and remember, this is yet another incident involving a fire and children. Far less in terms of the number of children who would have passed as a result of this fire than the last situation that we know of. So our thoughts are with the people of Guyana at this time, dealing with yet another tragic incident. Now, we want to shift gears a bit, but still keeping with the whole idea of children and the kind of care that is being administered to children who are dealing with cancer. And that's an issue that would not only affect the children, but also their parents. And it's not something, I think, pediatric cancer is something that we speak about a lot in Trinidad and Tobago. However, our next guest is going to be able to give us some insight into that health challenge and what is exactly being done to make that period of care a bit easier, less burdensome. We have joining us this morning Dr. Jacqueline Sabga. She is the chairperson of Promise House TT. Now, Jackie, as she is fondly known, is exceptionally well equipped to fulfill that role, having chaired the Vitus House Hospice for several years. She also served as their medical director and gave selflessly of her time in her career for terminally ill cancer patients. Now, Jackie is a family doctor and has been practicing medicine for over 25 years. And I guess by now it should be 26 years. Dr. Sabga, good morning and welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we talk about cancer to some degree in Trinidad and Tobago. Really and truly, when it hits home for those of us who have had the unfortunate challenge of dealing with that, whether it is within the family or so on. But pediatric cancer is not something that I think we hear a lot about in this country. Do you mind shedding some light in terms of, especially from your experience, what led you into this area and what are some of the things that you have noticed over the years of practice as it relates to pediatric cancer?
So the truth is, I do not practice within the realm of pediatric cancer, but over the years, taking care of cancer patients has always been a passion of mine. And about 5 years ago, Promise House TT was envisioned and formed with 5 women, myself included in that 5. And our initial vision was to organize a home much like a Ronald McDonald House in Trinidad. And previously and up until now, Just Because Foundation has actually been organizing a home like this where pediatric cancer children are housed with a family member or guardian while they're undergoing their treatment at Mount Hope.
And I have seen on social media the work that has been done by Promise House TT. I've read the articles, I've been keeping up, especially in preparing for this interview. And this was no easy undertaking. And being involved in civil society, being involved in medical field especially as well, you have the issue of resources or a lack thereof. It's something that many people always bring to the fore, and I'm curious to know, how is it that you, the fantastic 5 females, were able to attract the kind of support necessary to get this project off of the ground? And if you can just say from where the project started to present day, give us a bit of some insight in terms of that process.
So when we thought of putting down this facility where cancer children would be housed while they undergo their chemotherapy, we tried to figure out where would we put such a facility. And certainly in the initial stages, it was how would we manage to fund, raise money, buy land, build this property. And that literally took us on a journey of 5 years. So 5 years of lots of dreams, lots of tears, and moving our perspective from different geographic locations in Trinidad, actually. And then about a year and a half ago, the Les Amants Society actually approached us. And these amazing women have been doing humanitarian work for many decades. And their property up in Santa Cruz actually is an active running home for the aged. But within that property, there are 3 buildings. And they presented the idea of, initially, why don't we take the front building and renovate it to organize and suit what we wanted for our pediatric facility. Very soon thereafter, the dream extended so that the front property became the Promise House for pediatric cancer children. The middle property is going to be an adult cancer hospice. Both of those facilities are free. And the back property, I call it, which is the active home for the aged, we're going to renovate and have it still as a home for the aged.
Gotcha. And as far as I understand, the works that have been undertaken for the Promise House TT, that building, was supposed to initially be refurbishment works, but it gravitated into being a whole rebuilding. And tell us how exactly that occurred.
So the actual structure existed on the property in Santa Cruz, and it, really when we went up to see it, my team and Vincent Sabga, my nephew, who is Farky, and Alpha Engineering, we thought, okay, this could be a quick renovation. But then, of course, all dreams grow bigger, and the team really pushed hard, and we really wanted the best possible facility, not having to come to revisit in a few months or short years saying, I wish we had done this. So Vincent basically told us, dream your dream, let me know what it is, and then let me draw the drawing. And that's what he did. And Alpha Engineering then built the dream.
So tell us, in terms of the facility, and I must admit, it really was a pleasure seeing the work unfolding on social media, the updates, the picture collages, and so forth. I think it gives people a lot to look forward to, knowing that things are actually tangible, things are actually happening. So it wasn't just dreaming the dream, but living the reality of making this thing happen. In terms of now, the facility, what exactly does it offer in terms of the amenities, the facilities, and so forth? So if someone has to access, what can they look forward to?
Right. So when we started this project as well, and I really liked how you mentioned the fact that you really liked seeing the updates on social media. My entire team felt that we wanted to start this wave of positivity in Trinidad and Tobago. I think each one of us are very passionate women. We're very hardworking women. And we also realize all of the good that exists in Trinidad and Tobago, our people, our availability of resources, the generosity of people. And we wanted everybody to be included, no matter what they thought they could offer. Sometimes just a gentle word of encouragement, whether it was a financial donation, whether it was your time, whether it was resources from a company that you either own or work at. And I really felt that that had been accomplished. I was very, very proud of not only our team, but the entire country, of how everybody just came together on weekend. I have to tell you, it was my greatest pleasure on weekends, seeing all of these teams just come together to paint, power wash, scrub drains. And, you know, so I say that Thomas House did that, but really and truly in Trinidad and Tobago put that property down by the inclusiveness and the generosity of the entire country.
Excellent. And
within the
go ahead.
Within the facility, it's a 6-bedroom facility, and each bedroom has 2 beds in it, and you'll see like I'm sure you've seen the pictures where there's a desk, you know, and then each bathroom is attached to the bedroom, so each bedroom has its own bathroom.
Yes.
And it has an enormous playroom, family room, and kitchen, and then outdoor play area.
Understood. And again, I would strongly encourage anyone who is on social media to check out your social media, because you all are on Facebook and Instagram, and they can see you all rolling up your sleeves, even building or constructing those desks in the room and small cupboards and so forth. But getting into accessing these kinds of services, because there are some persons who may be right now planning their family and so forth, and the whole idea of their child being sick or having to deal with cancer is something far removed from their mind. But the reality is that this is something that affects many people in society. How does one access services such as this? If you could just walk us through what that process looks like.
Absolutely. So the pediatric oncology ward, cancer ward at Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex is really where pediatric cancer is dealt with and treated in this country. They do a remarkable job. They have a great team. So that every single pediatric cancer patient is known to them and traverses their ward and or clinics there. So access to Promise House would be through that. So children that are coming from far areas of Trinidad and Tobago, where transport might be a problem, where timing might be a problem, and the danger of missed appointments and treatments is present. Those are the children and their families that we would like to have at Promise House, because that way we create a nurturing, safe environment where they stay during the treatment.
And I mean, that is especially important mentally, emotionally, and of course physically, to have that kind of support during a trying time such as that. Thankfully, as you mentioned earlier, this isn't the only project that you all have on the cards, the adult hospice and so forth. How can anyone listening right now get involved and support the work that you all are doing? What more do you need from society right now to help make those dreams a reality?
So we love all of the volunteerism that has occurred, and certainly the generosity of organizations that we've reached out to for resources. That has actually made this project come to fruition, and without it, it would not have happened. And I think that as we march towards the second building, which is the adult cancer hospice and the then home for the aged, we will be reaching out again, asking for volunteers that will come and help us paint, and certainly to organizations and companies to either lend their generosity by providing resources and so to accomplish these last 2 phases of this project.
Understood. And last thing that I would probably want to engage you on, we are coming out of, well, we have emerged thankfully, from a global pandemic. During that period, there had been a lot of doubt, a lot of skepticism about hope and the idea of achieving certain things, because people really got to the point of it makes no sense pushing forward, and a lot of people became very selfish, so to say. But you have been able to witness firsthand the generosity of the population coming forth, giving selflessly of themselves and so forth. When we look at how we care for one another in this country, are there any messages or any word of advice for people looking on right now from where you stand of how we can still, while we're dealing with the many crazy things that we have on our plate on a daily basis, how are we still able to go out there and give of ourselves to others for the betterment of this country?
You know, I think as a general population, I am fiercely proud of the population of our people. I think I feel so privileged to be part of this generous and wonderful population. I think that one of the mantras that I live by as well is that if I haven't made just one person's life better within my day, then I have not accomplished my day. And sometimes that just means a gentle word of encouragement, something uplifting. You know, it might just mean that you need someone needs some food, some guidance, something. And I feel that that's something that each one of us is very, very well equipped to provide. You know, just look out for each other.
I fully agree. Dr. Sabga, how can persons get in contact with you and your team to give of themselves to the projects that you have?
So via Instagram is pretty great to get in touch with us, and via our Facebook posts. But certainly on one of our posts, we have each one of our numbers. I can certainly give my number. I think all my patients, everybody has my number. And if anyone needs to or wants to ask questions, feels like they want to be involved, please feel free to reach out. And my number is 682-3554.
Excellent. Dr. Sabga, thank you so much for joining us this morning, for sharing the work that you're doing with us, and of course doing the work that you're doing. I have it stuck in my head, the fantastic 5 females. Maybe that's something that you all can use as a tagline moving forward, but especially grateful for the work that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I cannot thank you enough for having me this morning. You are a phenomenal interviewer. Thank you very, very much. I feel so very proud of all of the questions you've asked and the ability that I had just to let everyone know a little bit more about Promise House.
Indeed, and we will keep the conversation going at some point, I'm sure, because I'm very much interested in the work and would love to support it in any way possible.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Excellent. That's Dr. Jacqueline Sabga, who is the chairperson of Promise House, Trinidad and Tobago. Folks, we are going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we have more for you here on AM Prime. Stay with us.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order, or visit us in-store at Forces flagship Mac Bean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WASN,
the content capital.
Welcome back to AM Prime, and we are keeping our conversations going this morning, this time touching on an issue that is extremely sensitive. It is about the migrants in Trinidad and Tobago, and especially the kind of abuses that many of them have been said to be facing. One of the more recent cases that we've seen is that of a 21-year-old female migrant, Venezuelan migrant. And just to put forward some of the facts as we have it, we would have had a situation where on March 27th, the young woman, she was detained at a Freeport bar. She was transferred to the heliport facility as she did not have documents, apparently, in her possession to prove that she was in the country legally. On April 4th, she was reportedly missing during a head count and was later apparently found at a bar by officers attached to the Shogunas police station. But even before it got to that point, her partner would have gone on social media appealing to the public for any information or at least bringing attention to this situation. We've since had calls from various sectors of society for an investigation to take place into the alleged sexual assault that she would have had faced, which may have led to her absconding from the facility. We have had members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service come forth at a media conference saying that up until the point of that media conference, there had been no evidence of sexual assault being faced by the young woman. Her lawyer has come forth calling for the Minister of National Security to make a pronouncement on this situation. But as time and days go by, we are hearing of all kinds of different abuses being faced by the migrant population. Now, to speak about this a bit more, we have with us the Executive Director of the Caribbean Center for Human Rights, and she is Denise Pitcher. Good morning and welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning, Akoli. Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. Now, this is not an easy topic to discuss at all because there are so many mixed feelings that people have. People who feel as though this migrant situation, they more or less see migrants as second to our Trinbagonian population and met out a particular kind of treatment that no one should have to face. Also, we are seeing good work by those who have stepped up to the plate across society, trying to provide education for the children of migrants, trying to provide a comfortable space for many of these persons who have fled from their home country to save their lives. And we can put it as plain as that. It's not that they came to Trinidad and Tobago on a visa and decided to overstay. These were persons who were fleeing from a humanitarian situation in their country and now, unfortunately, they are facing somewhat of a humanitarian crisis in terms of the abuses being meted out to them. How do you sleep at night knowing that these things are top of mind for not just yourself, but for many other persons?
So, I mean, CCHR, we do understand the population's sentiments and attitudes towards the influx of migrants and refugees in Trinidad and Tobago. We do have quite a number of them. But that still does not absolve the state of its duty based on the obligations we have committed to under the Refugee Convention and other international treaties to treat everyone equally and afford them the rights that they are entitled to. How do we sleep at night? I mean, it is a very difficult situation for migrants and refugees. I mean, we still have to commend the government for that registration process where they registered 15,653 Venezuelan migrants and refugees. And that has allowed some of them to stay here legally and work. However, we still have so many more in Trinidad and Tobago who do not have documentation. And as such, they are forced to work illegally. And that then exposes them to other sorts of abuses, exploitation, labor exploitation, sexual exploitation. Another pressing concern for us as well, too, is the fact that refugee and migrant children do not have access to education in local schools. Some are able to attend some schools privately, and UNHCR and Living Water Community do have a program, but it's not sufficient enough. To give them the education that they need if they expect to have social and economic mobility. So it's a very challenging situation here for refugees and migrants in Trinidad and Tobago. And a lot of that stems from the fact that we still don't have any legal framework to guide how we treat refugees and migrants in Trinidad and Tobago.
And that's a really important point there, because we've heard calls from various sectors asking for a policy framework that treats for persons who are refugees or want to have refugee status in Trinidad and Tobago, because the fact is that the registration is not good enough. It's a start. It's a start in the right direction, but here we are, 2 years or so onward from that start of the process, and we've seen a renewal of those the ability to stay here, but we need to do a lot more. I've personally befriended some of these amazing people who are hardworking. We see them in restaurants, we see them taking care of homes and so forth in various spaces, but there is always that apprehension of they aren't sure when at any point in time things can take a turn for the worse. So living with that and having to experience that can be quite challenging. Now, one of the things that I read that you had discussed or put forward was that at the heliport, persons such as yourself representing the Caribbean Center for Human Rights have not been afforded the opportunity to visit the center. And I think that you would have put forward that human rights organizations and so forth, based on international criteria, should be able to visit these centers to check up on it, to make sure that these abuses are not taking place, because the fact is that the police would go there, and I want to pull on your point again there, where on a particular day, interviews could be done, but the persons who should be the ones interviewed may not be there on that day. So it's a very curious criteria for which the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is set to be handling this investigation. Would you want to elaborate a bit more on that?
So the heliport was initially established, as we have said before, as an immigration station. It's where they hold people who are being processed to be sent back, and also it's to screen persons who arrive for COVID. The issue we have with that center is that it's not operating according to the same policies and procedures as the detention center in Aripo. And that admission was also made in the Joint Select Committee hearing, where Immigration Division admitted that it does not operate under the same policies and procedures. And I mean, they want to emphasize that this is an immigration station. It's not a detention facility. However, because some of them are there for months, even over a year, some are there waiting for their matters in court to play out, and that then becomes a de facto immigration detention facility, simply because they're there for a long time, and also it's arbitrary detention because it no longer it's no longer necessary and proportionate to the reason why they ought to be there. With regard to the allegations of sexual abuse around the heliport, I mean, if there is monitoring, it's not just only about protecting the migrants and refugees or the persons that are being held in the facility. It's also a way of verifying that, in fact, these allegations are not true, and it's safeguarding the officers that are guarding the facility. But the fact of the matter is, we've received ongoing reports of sexual abuse, and this facility is operated in a military base. It's shielded from the rest of the public. There is no access. We have requested access. Other stakeholders have requested access, and it's very worrying, because these are people that are they're one of the most vulnerable sectors of our society, because they are in Trinidad and Tobago, and there's no way of verifying if these abuses are taking place. And it's also a way of monitoring that the officers or that the policies and procedures that they ought to be governed by are actually happening.
Gotcha. How do we hold these persons accountable? Because I'm very curious to understand. We have a Joint Select Committee, and when you think about it, members of the very government that you're trying to hold accountable and trying to ask to look into these things are the same ones sitting on this Joint Select Committee and who would more or less put forward that report thereafter. But if there is that level of distrust or discomfort existing, how are we holding them accountable? Do we need to write to foreign organizations? I mean, the UN is already in Trinidad and Tobago trying to do work, but that is only getting so far. Is there a body that we should be writing to? And can the average citizen do anything in this effort to bring some kind of relief and support to migrants in this country?
Well, I mean, again, back to the heliport, I mean, there is an investigation ongoing with that specific case. And we did receive information that the Joint Select Committee is going to conduct, or they should have conducted, monitoring last Friday. So they will prepare a report. We did share with them some guidelines on what they should look for and how that facilities should be operated under international human rights standards with regards to detention. In terms of what the average citizen should do, there is a lot of xenophobia towards these migrants and refugees. And I mean, I know, or we understand that a lot of it comes from frustration because of the average citizen's own struggle with what's happening with the economy and all of that. And we empathize with that. But they are also human beings, just like everybody else, and they're entitled to the same rights as everyone else. They're entitled to equality of treatment, to safety and security, and all the other human rights that everyone else is entitled to. I mean, in terms of what can happen, of course, we hope that this investigation will, hold those accountable for who may be perpetrators of the alleged abuse. With regards to international organizations, there are bodies, the Human Rights Committee that we can share the report with, which we intend to do. But really and truly, to be able to protect these persons, it has to be done domestically. We have to ensure that our own protective services are doing their job effectively and protecting everyone.
Then from where you sit, has there been any sort of, I would imagine, of course, there has been some level of training, but are you seeing the kind of training operating at that level where those in authority or in positions, the TTPS and so forth, are equipped enough to handle some of these challenges that are now afoot? Because, of course, you would have had members of the TTPS who are not Spanish speakers. And when you go to investigate a situation, and let's say it's a conflict between a migrant and a local, one would expect that more attention and care would be paid toward the local just because of their own biases and so forth. But are we seeing the right kind of training being deployed to deal with these kinds of situations?
So, the UN agencies here in Trinidad and Tobago, they have conducted a number of sensitization exercises and training exercises. So that is ongoing. But we still see, negative attitudes, towards, for example, victims of trafficking, or Venezuelan migrants when they go to report any crimes against them. And there is an attitude that they're not a priority over, or they don't meet the same needs or the same treatment as a local. Even with healthcare, we've heard of xenophobia. Tremendous xenophobia as well in the healthcare services, and refugees and migrants are entitled to basic healthcare in Trinidad and Tobago. That is their fundamental right. So it's a continuous process. I think with ongoing education, ongoing training, ongoing sensitization, that things will change over time. But also, it's very important that we have some sort of legal framework so that we can identify all the different actors in place to deal with migrants and refugees, so that we don't have situations like this happening, for example, with this 21-year-old Venezuelan migrant, because through the course of her case, it exposed the fact that we don't have a legal framework in place, and on all the shortcomings of not having that legal framework, and where the state failed at every single point, from the police, counter-trafficking unit, from being held at the heliport, all of those things. And that is where a legislative framework, a legal framework will ensure greater protection for migrants and refugees.
Indeed, and I know that recently in Parliament, speaking on behalf of the Minister of National Security, Camille Robinson-Regis, would have responded to a question from the opposition about the investigation, and also would have put forward that the young woman was not expected to be, or it was not the intention of the government to deport her or to send her back. And that's a real fear that these migrants have. And when we look globally, we understand that reporting of crimes and so forth would be much lower among the migrant population for the fear of being sent home, being detained and so forth. So I definitely understand the importance of that legal framework to protect persons so that at the end of the day, they can in fact get justice, as opposed to being fearful that by putting forward their claim or their issue, it will just turn out badly for them in the end. I want to ask in the final couple of minutes that we have here, the Caribbean Center for Human Rights, I would imagine this is but one issue that is attracting the attention of the center. What other issues do you want to sensitize the population about, and especially for persons to be able to support, to give a voice, to come forward and to help with the work that you all are undertaking?
So the Caribbean Center for Human Rights, we also advocate for prison reform and for criminal justice reform and for police use of force and access to justice as well too. That's a tremendous issue in Trinidad and Tobago. And I would, encourage citizens to pay more attention to what's happening in Trinidad and Tobago, to educate themselves about what's happening, educate themselves on their rights as well too. There's a wealth of information available on government websites, so that every citizen would know what their rights are, and how they can claim their rights and hold state officials accountable and increase their own human rights and enjoyment of human rights.
And let me ask, when it comes to rights, because we're not really taught, or there isn't that ongoing conversation, I think, about what are my rights, what are our rights, and how do we protect those rights, how do we enforce our rights, because we would hear sometimes, you know, if a police officer accosts a citizen, the individual might say, I know my rights, and so forth. But it goes far beyond simply in the face of a police officer or in the face of being challenged, asserting your rights. Yes. It has to do with an everyday going on, so to say. What can we do to really sensitize persons about our rights? And do you think that there is a paucity of that effort to sensitize citizens about their own rights?
I mean, I wouldn't say paucity. I mean, because there is information. I mean, but again, that's part of CCHR's work, information and awareness campaigns. And I mean, it's forums like these where we get these opportunities to, to speak on these issues so the public becomes aware of their rights. Mm-hmm. I would say, definitely there needs to be more education, not just only by, civil society organizations, but by also the government as well, too. On people's rights, because we do see on an everyday basis, so many human rights challenges in Trinidad and Tobago, not just migrants and refugees, abuse of children, gender-based violence, human trafficking, access to justice, lengthy stay in remand. These are all, there are quite a number, even health issues. We get a number of reports of violations of human rights within the healthcare system. So CCHR will continue to do the work, continue to, to share information as much as possible. But we do encourage both the government and other civil society organizations and the public as well to engage more and educate themselves more.
Finally, how can persons get in contact with CCHR?
So they can reach us via our email, which is Caribbean Center for Human Rights @gmail.com. Center spelled with T-R-E-C-E-N-T-R-E. Mm-hmm. And also you can message us on our Facebook page as well to the Caribbean Center for Human Rights. And generally, we'll respond, within a day or two.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your work at the CCHR, and thank you so much for joining us this morning to share not just only on the topic of that 21-year-old female migrant, but especially helping us to understand our rights in a wider context and what we can do. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And that was Denise Pitcher, the Executive Director of the Caribbean Center for Human Rights. And of course, these are issues, topics that should be very important to all of us here in Trinidad and Tobago, because we may think or take it for granted that these issues don't affect us or will never affect us. But just look right around you and you will see how important it is to stand up and to speak out, not just for yourself, but for others who are experiencing injustice in this country. We just want to shift, before we go, of course, to some more regional news as we have the time here. And I want to shift focus now to Barbados, because Barbados' capital, Bridgetown, is once again in the spotlight following renewed calls for investment by both government and private sector to ensure that the city doesn't die. We have a video here.
Bridgetown, once a bustling city, the center for commerce in Barbados. These days, that hustle and bustle has waned, creating concern among businessmen. Head of the Bridgetown Revitalization Committee for the Barbados Chamber of Commerce, Eddie Abed, is once again raising concerns about the declining number of businesses operating in Bridgetown.
I don't need to tell anyone about the vacancies that we see in retail space, predominantly in Bridgetown, which is somewhere in the ballpark of maybe 25% on ground floor and over 75% on first floor. And this is a worrying sign.
He says there's only one thing that could attract businesses back to the city.
Retail businesses go where there's footfall traffic. Take away the footfall traffic and retail businesses will not go in those locations.
But he notes there are a number of contributing factors as to why people do not shop in Bridgetown, ranging from convenience to parking.
One is lack of parking, as you quite rightly said. The other is cleanliness and hygiene. That the city is dirty, it doesn't present itself as being up to date and modern, it's disheveled. And one that can easily be solved, I believe, is the lack of lighting. People like to shop in the evening, but unless they feel comfortable, secure, safe, they're not going to come out and shop. And Bridgetown has a problem with lighting.
Mr. Abed says if Bridgetown is truly to reach its potential, it will require both government and private investment. Crystal Hoyt, CBC News.
And of course, we're seeing globally and even right here domestically where there are calls for public-private partnerships, investment in certain areas. I know that yesterday, I think it was, that the borough of Diego Martin opened their administrative complex, and that was a public-private partnership. And we need to see a lot more of that, especially considering that we have here in Trinidad and Tobago the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act finally being assented to, being fully proclaimed. So those are instances, even domestically, where we can take advantage of the situation to breathe life into our cities, Port of Spain and San Fernando, as well as our boroughs and municipal corporations. So we'll look on to Barbados, see what comes out of those calls, and see if anything can be applied to here in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's go a bit further afield to Antigua and Barbuda, because that country has welcomed another high-level United Nations official, Under Secretary General for the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, Lee Junhua. Mr. Lee is in the country as part of preparations for the single largest global gathering to be hosted in Antigua and Barbuda in just about a year's time. Up to 5,000 delegates are expected to converge in that country for the 4th Conference of Small Island Developing States, SIDS, and we have a report from Garfield Burford.
And welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Good time, yeah? Very well.
It's a great honor.
The United Nations Under Secretary General for the Department of Economic and Social Affairs meeting with Prime Minister Honorable Gaston Brown on Friday. Lee Junhua is in Antigua and Barbuda as the country prepares to host the 4th Conference of Small Island Developing States, or SIDS, around the middle of next year. The conference is held every 10 years. The last one was held in Samoa in 2014. It will be by far the most monumental conference to be staged in the Trinidad state, both in size and the consequential issues to be discussed.
The issue of technology, you want to make sure that there's increased application and use of technology, including AI, artificial intelligence within SIDS, and that will be one of the outcomes that we're looking at. We said we want to establish a specific ICT center here in Antigua and Barbuda, and probably a center dealing with oceanography as well. That is one of the outcomes.
Mr. Lee told Prime Minister Brown he's pleased with what he has seen so far.
I could honestly report to you, the Honorable Prime Minister, we are almost there. We are very delighted and satisfied with all the facilities and all the service, the support from the government of the Antigua and Barbuda. Your team is an excellent one.
Antigua and Barbuda's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Aubrey Webson, is the point man on the conference for this country.
But just think of the taxes for airports, people coming into the airports. We'll have to increase the airlift into the island. Just think of the increased expenditure in all of the areas of the economic sector. So I'm very sure the economic spin-off will heavily outweigh. As I said, the conference is going to be primarily funded by international partners, so the government's expenditure would be very small.
Lotte Tinen, Chief of Outreach and Partnerships at the UN's Department of Economic and Social Affairs, expects the conference to be as transformative for Antigua and Barbuda as it was for Samoa in 2014.
This will be a huge undertaking by the country. It will demand a lot of skills, investment, and effort, but it will also serve to benefit you in the years to come, as Ambassador said, to show that Antigua can host large international conferences in the Caribbean.
Well, folks, that's how we wrap on today's program here on WESN AM Prime. Special thanks to our guests, Anita Haynes, Member of Parliament for Tabaquite, Dr. Jacqueline Sabga, the Chairperson of Promise House TT, and Denise Pitcher, who is the Executive Director at the Caribbean Center for Human Rights. So I hope that you have a productive day, that it isn't all rainy, and please feel free to join us again tomorrow here on WESN for more AM Prime. I'm Nikolai Edwards. Have a productive day.